you have to believe that it's going to happen before it actually happens. And the reason that I'm asking you that question is because it seems like in this scenario too, it's yeah, you have the belief it's going to happen without any evidence besides the work that you've put in that it's actually going to occur. What makes you be able to believe at that level? I know we've talked about static versus dynamic confidence. Is that it? Is that just building a stack of evidence that says, hey, I've prepared for this moment? But my follow-up question would be, are you ever going to feel like you're prepared if you've never done it before?
It's like studying for a massive final exam. You
Yeah.
can never study enough. There is no end to studying because you can't know the material too well.
Mm.
And so then don't try to be perfect, because if you try to be perfect, that's the blind spot to success. Because
Hi, and we are back. And we are continuously getting updates about the Guinness World Record as we lead up to it. You said that you had at least a couple things you wanted to touch on. Up to it, update us with what we got going on.
so people have dreams and goals, and with our records we try to put the charity first and everything else second. And so awareness for the charity and raising money, and whether we set the record or not, those are good things that'll happen. But we know if we set the record that there's more money and more awareness raised for charity. So that is definitely a driver. But then life gets in the way. So driving down to the facility to practice under the same conditions is very difficult. So we tried a practice yesterday in my brother's garage.
Okay.
The
Interesting.
dimensions on an angle were okay.
Okay.
The problem was there was like lights in the way of ceiling height. There was like benches. You couldn't really move back or side to side much. So you kind of felt really confined.
Mm.
And so, back to square one, many, many misses, many failures.
And you're like, and you're like, oh boy. So let me ask you this: when this happens, right? Because you've done this many times now, what is going through your brain as you are failing, right? Because I think that's the one of the toughest parts for people to navigate, and something that I'm recently relating to heavily, right? Especially with just the mass amount of misses I've been having that's outside of my norm. But it's how in those moments when you are failing, how are you navigating it from a mental standpoint?
I would say that failure and setback set the stage to build your humbleness muscle, and your dreams and goals keep you hungry.
Yeah.
So it's that balance of being humble and hungry that keeps you moving forward. And
Yeah.
if you treat uh, mistakes as learnings, then you're going to be better every time you make a mistake. Uh, Failure, the way that we use it, is not a destination.
Mm.
It's a process, and it's progress, counter to what the word may sound like. Except if you give up, quit, or do something else, then failure is final.
Mm.
And my thing is, that's why these things are called world records. That's why Ivan Lendl said, "Better you than me," kind of thing. It is one of those things where it's exciting, but at the same time, it's that and you play pickleball,
Yeah.
it's the smallest of margins. I mean, you got to time your breathing, blinking, and your hand flexing. And it's just, you got to do that 10,000 times, or at least I have to do it 5,000. He's got to do it 5,000. You want to aim more than that.
Mm.
And it's just, it puts things in perspective, I guess is the best way to describe it. But also, when you feel confined, like one of my balls hit the ricochet off the light and there was one miss right there. We know that there's no low ceilings or anything. So
Yeah.
that miss won't happen. But my brother hit such a solid forehand. He almost body bagged me. I mean, I think he's trying to win the point. And so, it's that, I think what makes these are called marathon records. And when we were training with our other mental skills coach for the 30,576 volley rally, we consulted with a couple of marathon coaches, because this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, but at the same time you're sprinting, because your mind knows that the quicker you hit the shot, the less torture you have, because you're done quicker. But then the other side of your mind says, but if I hit the ball higher and softer and slower, it's less likely I'm going to miss, but I have to sit here longer. So it's that, that what do we do? What tempo is right? And so that's where I really try not to analyze it. I have committed the fact that, on Saturday, August 17th, that world record will drop, and we're going to have a fun podcast talking about all of the experience from it. Yeah. And hopefully that inspires, other people to go for their dreams and goals. But yeah, that gives a little bit of perspective on mistakes, failure, being humble, and being hungry.
Yeah. And I think if you didn't have that failure, right? Like, you wouldn't really have that drive to like want to grow and even learn more, or like that humility, right? It's like when that humility sinks in, it's like a brain blast of, okay, I have something to work on. I have something that isn't perfect. I have something that I am not perfect at, because perfect is ultimately something that is impossible to achieve, right? It's great to strive towards it, but it's a continuous journey towards it. So I feel like if you never had failure, what would give you any reason to like want to set out and do anything, right? You'd have nothing driving you to get off the couch. So I think that was a very good point that you had there, is like, you need that humility. You need to be humbled in order for you to continuously want to grow and move forward, right? So I love that you guys went into the garage. I think that's awesome. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall during that session of you guys going back and forth. I don't even want to know what was said in that.
Let's put it this way. So we're trying to go forehand to forehand, which is kind of hard, because in pickleball you're 80% backhand and 20% forehand when you're at the non-volley zone line. But because we're conditioned to do the tennis world record that way, and we did that 30,576 times, we're gonna go with what we know. But there were many backhands. There were several backhands. I wouldn't say many, but several backhands. But my brother hit a forehand down the line so fast to my backhand that I caught the ball. My first reaction was to catch the ball. I didn't even move the paddle from my forehand to my backhand, because the problem, and this is where it becomes scary, is, and we experienced this when we rallied 14 hours and 31 minutes, your mind falls asleep. It's not on autopilot because you're hyper engaged, but you're so hyper engaged that then you're disengaged.
Mm.
And so, and you would only know that if you're doing something for many, 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 many hours. Okay. And so what I've realized in doing these things is if something changes, your mind is not aware that the change happened yet. There's like a 1 to 2 second delay. The problem with that is what just happened. I'm sitting on the forehand. We're doing a great tempo, and I get a bullet to my backhand. I just raise my hand and catch the ball. I mean, it's like, what just happened? So your mind and your body do things that you're just not used to.
Yeah.
And the thing is, but it doesn't matter. I mean, nothing matters because the readiness for me started and finished on the day we submitted the application for the record, because that is the day that I knew we had to commit that we were going to do the record. So
Yeah.
everything else is gravy, and it's like, we got this. It's just that every practice you have more learnings. And Thomas Shields of the Dink newsletter, remember, he was like, got to practice. And yes, we do have to practice, not just mental practice.
Yeah.
You have to practice, but at the same time, you have to know that have that quiet confidence that, this is going to happen. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go. And you reference the word perfect. And for the athletes and coaches out there, perfection is an opinion.
Mm. Oh,
it is
okay.
not a fact.
I never thought of it as an opinion.
Perfection is an opinion, just like impossible is an opinion. And so when you're shooting for perfection, that is not the goal, because everyone defines perfection or winning differently.
I love that.
Everyone defines it differently. So what's perfect or winning for one athlete is not perfect or losing for another athlete. And that is why I'm built like clay, is that I'm like a chameleon that can, mold to my surroundings like an owl, and it's okay. Everything is okay. And I told you about my experience in becoming a Dale Carnegie coach, and student and graduate. And one of the public speaking courses assignments was to not prepare. Basically, you're showing up, you have no idea of the topic that you're going to speak on, and you have no idea when you're going to go or what order. And then they just call your name. You go up to the stage, you have 5 minutes, and then they give you a topic and they say, go. And you got to speak intelligently about that topic with conviction, as if you've planned that script perfectly. And, and that is the way that I compete.
I have a question on that, because it's actually so crazy that you referenced this. So I watched a documentary on Netflix last night that just came out. It's called Sprint. So it's based off of all the Olympic sprinters. The documentary right now is on the World Championships, right? And it's to build hype around the Olympics, but it's also to give insight on what these athletes actually go through to prepare for 10 seconds, right? 10 to 20 seconds. It's crazy. But one of the U.S. sprinters, last name Lyles, forgot his first name off the top of my head. Anyways, he said a major thing from him was that you have to believe that it's going to happen before it actually happens. And the reason that I'm asking you that question is because it seems like in this scenario too, it's that you have the belief it's going to happen without any evidence besides the work that you've put in that it's actually going to occur. What makes you be able to believe at that level? I know we've talked about static versus dynamic confidence. Is that it? Is that just building a stack of evidence that says, hey, I've prepared for this moment? But my follow-up question would be, are you ever going to feel like you're prepared if you've never done it before?
It's like studying for a massive final exam. You
Yeah.
can never study enough. There is no end to studying because you can't know the material too well.
Mm.
And so then don't try to be perfect, because if you try to be perfect, that's the blind spot to success. Because once there's a chink in the armor, then you realize that you're not perfect and you failed. But have you really failed?
Mm.
And so that is what I would say to that is, yeah, it defies logic, and that's why it's illogical. That's why some people consider it impossible. That's why some people don't try things like this. But if you separate your ego from your purpose, then you're not fearful of failure. You embrace it because there is no fear.
Do you believe it's just an ego thing? Would you say it's strictly ego? Because like the real question on top of that I'm trying to break down, because I think a lot of people can relate to this too, is how do you truly believe that you can accomplish something without ever have done it before? And I get, like a final exam, you're going to prepare for it the best of your ability. But I'm talking about just believing that it can occur even after your first attempt. So, for example, also in the Sprinter documentary, Noah, his first name's Noah. Noah Lyles said going into the World Championships that he was going to run, I believe it was a 9.65 and then like a 19 something, a 19.10 maybe in the 200 meter. He did not accomplish it in the World Championships. But guess where he did accomplish it? A couple weeks ago in the Olympic trials. Right? So, how is somebody able to tell themselves with that much certainty and that much belief that they're going to make something happen that has never been done before? Same thing with the world records. How do you give yourself that much belief that it's actually going to occur? Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not a year from now, but someday it's going to actually happen.
So it's a combination of aspiring, inspiring, and being motivated. And aspire is something that lasts a long time. You aspire to set a world record for two reasons: to inspire others to go for their dreams and goals that they might thought might be impossible. And if someone sees me do it, then hey, they can see something in me and maybe they can do it. And then it's the do the right thing for charity, and you're doing it for a different purpose. And so is there really a failure? You
Mm.
know, and it's tied in with hope and faith. And I think we've talked on one of the podcasts before about the example of the mouse swimming. Do we remember that?
Yeah.
And the study they did of how, the mouse that didn't have hope that it was going to be saved drowned after, let's say an hour of swimming. And then the mouse that was saved right before they drowned, right as they were drowning, and then resuscitated, and then they had the hope that they were going to be saved. They lasted something like 25 hours instead of an hour. It's the power of faith and hope, not just belief, because faith is a higher level that's not confined within yourself. Belief is confined within yourself. And sometimes you have to look externally to give you the confidence to know that you can do something. That's why people have coaches. That's why people have mental skills coaches. And a real life example I'll share with you is, unfortunately, there was the Sandy Hook massacre that happened in Connecticut. And at the time, I was coaching a family, and one of the sisters was a survivor in the gymnasium that day, during the massacre. Actually, matter of fact, the hat I'm wearing, this Super Bowl hat, and it's signed by the family. They were invited to the Super Bowl, and they performed a choir on the 50-yard line, during the halftime show. Anyways, so the older sibling, one of the older siblings, I was her tennis coach, and she was really nervous because she was trying out for the tennis team as a freshman. And she didn't have the belief that she could do it. And what had happened was she was coming to me for private lessons, but it was mainly mental skills based lessons. Yes, there was some technique, but it was, the foundation was belief and mental skills and dealing with your emotions. And she was going to another club for group clinics. And unfortunately, the club had collapsed one night. Thankfully, no one was injured because people had just left the club about an hour prior. There was too much snow on the roof. So the club collapsed and was shut down for over a year. So she had to be displaced to another club. And the tennis professional at that club took a look at her forehand and said, your grip on the forehand is not correct. You can't make the high school tennis team with that grip. And so I found this out,
Yeah.
and the mom had texted me, gave me a heads up of what was going on emotionally, and said, you're going to have to work your magic today because she's at a low. So we started doing the lesson. And then I remember I pulled her up to the net because I asked her what she wanted to work on. Of course, she said her forehand. And, so I demonstrated to her hitting the forehand with the grip that she had, that she could still make the ball, that she could still hit the ball in play. And I said, if I can hit the ball like this and make it in, so can you. So after the lesson, it was like the light bulb went off. And then after the lesson, she just needs someone externally to believe in her. So we sat in the conference room, and I remember I had her write in her journal, I will make the high school tennis team 100 times. And I said, your follow-up assignment is you're going to come back. We're going to do another lesson. And I want you to not only write it, but I want you to read it and reread it until you believe it. So the week comes and goes. We do another lesson. We go in the conference room again. And she shows me her assignment. It was beautiful. It was very neatly written. It was unbelievable. And it was 100 times. I will make the high school tennis team. And so then I said, well, do you believe it? She's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, that's not convincing enough. That's not convincing me or you. Reread it. I want you to reread it again this week until you believe it. So lo and behold, the tennis tryouts happen. And I get a call at like 6:30 at night. It was dinner time. And I remember running into the bathroom with my cell phone because I knew it was her calling. And I pick up the phone, because I didn't want to disrupt dinner with everyone else. And she's like, in tears. And she's like, I made it. I made the team.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was this unbelievable moment as a coach that it's like you're so happy for someone because you help them find their way
Mm,
and find their belief, and you were the catalyst. And so there was a story written about this story in Tennis Industry magazine,
I think I
and
remember reading it.
it was so moving to me because she ended up one of her class assignments was to write about one person that had a big impact in her life, and
Mm,
I was that person. And so it was just for me, just it struck a chord. It still does.
yeah,
That you know, you're out there, you're trying to figure out life,
yeah,
and then you help someone, and especially someone that went through this situation with the massacre and everything, and the whole family, and it's just you make that difference in someone's life, and that's the best story I can give you as far as believing in something that's never been done that you don't think you
yeah.
can do, uh, and things like that. That's what keeps me going.
Let me ask you, what year was that?
I don't even remember.
Give me an estimate. So the
I
only
would say
reason
it was probably 11 years ago.
that I'm saying that is because you can see the weight that it still holds with you after all of this time, and I think that that speaks volumes to how impactful that belief, how impactful having faith really is to carry with you all this time and still resonate with you speaking about it to this day, right? I think that speaks for the message to itself of what that holds, the weight that it holds with anybody. Um, and I think I knew you were going to go the route of faith, and I think that story could not encompass it anymore. And to really back that up, Noah Lyles, when you were talking about beliefs, said the same thing. He said, all these years, I just had to have faith. Every single year, all I did was have to have faith. And that's all he could hold, right? Is having faith. Um, so I think it's important to know that, and this kind of relates to like how you want to allocate your time too, right? If you are enjoying what you're doing on a day to day basis, it is easier to hold faith in the long term, I'll say, goal, or if you want to call it a destination. But the destination at the end doesn't truly matter if you enjoy what you're doing and then you can believe in where you're heading and believe in your ability. Now, I think that we could probably have a whole another podcast on tactics, on what I can do to really find belief in myself when I don't. So
Mm.
I think that'll be a fun episode to guide into. But I'll pivot a little bit for us because there's a topic that we talked about that I personally want more details on, and I think it'll be fun to share. So you have a concept in your book that you addressed to me recently, and it was that you want to play as a boa constrictor, not a rattlesnake,
Yeah.
right? And I think logically to me, that makes sense, right? And from reading it in your book, it makes sense. But really, the application is the gap, especially for me right now. So, give us a little insight on really what does that mean and how we can utilize it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the journey, not the destination, and
Mm,
it's the tortoise, not the hare. So it's being mindful and methodical and aware and in tune with your surroundings and realistic in your observations and flexible like a rubber band or like clay and not rigid like an iron bar. That you use your knowledge of past experience presently, but not forcefully. It's that flow state. That's why they call it flow.
Mm.
Is it's smooth and it's rhythmic and it's feels natural, and that's it's not the brute force of it. It's not the quick kill, the quick strike. It's the thoughtfulness of it outlasting your opponent. And I know athletes like Roger Federer in tennis have said, I'll try coming to the net. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try staying at the baseline. But either way, I'll find something that'll work, and my opponent will try different things, and I'll be able to have an answer for anything given to me. And that is the boa constrictor. The rattlesnake is that the quick, want it now type of thing.
Aggressive nature, kill everything in my path type mentality, or go after everything in my path.
Yeah, but it's like, but yet a boa constrictor is certainly aggressive, but just aggressive in a much different manner that is still lethal. And whereas a rattlesnake, it's hit or miss. It's all or none. It's kind of like a Hail Mary in football. Whereas if you have that short 3-yard, 4-yard dump off pass, if you make 4 yards every down of 3 downs, you will make a first down every time. Or if you go for it on 4th down and you get 3 yards 4 times, 12 yards, you'll get your 10 yards every down.
Yeah.
So it's that, and that's what Tom Brady was really good at, was that if option A, receiver, the long pass wasn't there, he didn't have any ego in just dumping it off a few yards, getting a positive touch on the ball, and then moving the chains, rhythmically. And that's how he came back and beat the Atlanta Falcons, yeah. So those are the qualities, and you want to develop those qualities like muscles. And what are those qualities? Well, it's listening, responding, being aware, honing your awareness, being observant, but not distracted. It's letting things flow by you that are distractions or gamesmanship or whatever it would be, and just sticking to your game plan, because over time that it's going to go your way, that you've prepared for this. And those are the things that you're looking to develop as an athlete. And that looks different in every sport. I referenced, I am coaching this national fencer, and he just got back from nationals. He did a really nice job with his mental game. And, it's figuring out how he's going to beat people better than him, how he's going to beat people at his level, and how he's going to beat people that he's better than. And his particular circumstance, the blind spot, is the people that he's better than. Well, because when he's ahead and then the opponent scores a couple of points, it's more, it could get to a spiral where, oh no, I could lose to someone I shouldn't lose to. And that was that quote I've said, and I've said before, I'll say it again, is respect that everyone can beat you, but know that you can beat anyone. And that's so important, is having that humbleness and respect that you might not win, and then doing the best that you can to win, and having that confidence that you can win. And what I say is, if you're playing, let's say, pickleball, and you have a smash, and You have a huge open court and you hit it as hard as you possibly can, and the ball barely clips the line and you win the point. You didn't need that. That's happy, not satisfied. That ball might not go in next time. Whereas if solidly angle off the shot well within the line, still nobody touches it, that's worth the same exact amount of points, but yet the risk reward ratio is so drastically different. And boa constrictor, the risk reward ratio is much different than a rattlesnake. Well, a rattlesnake is very risky. And it's kind of like you have one arrow left
Mm,
in your quiver and you're shooting it
I
and you
like
miss
this.
the target, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. And
And like I understand that, and the way that I interpret like the boa constrictors, like they're patient in taking the most opportune time to attack, right? So they're kind of lingering, observing. They're really not moving too quickly. But when they find their time to strike, that is the most opportune and most advantageous, that is when they move on it, right?
yeah,
So I love that reference and it helps me tremendously. And when you talk about, firing it into an open court, there's a one quote in your book that always will stick with me. And I don't know why I remember it so well. And you know what I'm going to say. And it's like, why take $1 when you only need a nickel?
yeah,
Right. And I think
yeah,
we talk about that all the time. It's like, why do you need to smash 100% topspin on a tight angle? And yeah, maybe you catch it for a winner, but the chance that you're going to hit that 10 out of 10 times or 9 out of 10 times is slim.
yeah.
But
And
if you hit 75,
Tom Gullickson told me that quote
yeah,
when I did a clinic with him. I believe he got that from Rod Laver, but yeah, and that when I watch professional soccer, I always think in the penalty shots, that if you juke the goalie is on the ground, out of play. All you have to do is just push it into the open net.
yeah.
And you don't have to blast it in the upper corner and show off, and it's worth the same amount of points, but the risk is so different.
Yeah, would you this could be a stretch, but I'm curious. Do you feel like the individuals that let's keep it to penalty kicks? The individuals that have to go up there and blast one, and sometimes they blast it over the net into the crowd. Some guy catches it way back, right? And then throws it back in play. But the ball is a gazillion miles into the stands. Do you think that's an ego thing? Do you think that's, hey, I need to show somebody what I could do? I need to not only just take enough to get the point, but really assert myself in this scenario?
So I would equate that to two styles of athletes.
Yeah.
And there's the athlete that premeditates the position of the corner kick, the goal kick, the penalty shot, and just sticks to the game plan. There is no clay there.
Mm,
I'm going to go upper right corner, but I'm going to hit it so well that even if the goalie guesses correctly, that it's still going to go in the net. And that's what
mm.
happened in 1999 World Cup,
Okay.
USA Women's World Cup, upper right corner against China to win it. And that was always memorable to me because the goalie made a great dive and if you look at the picture, the ball was still miles away from her fingertips. It was going to be a goal no matter what.
Yeah.
That's one. The other is the cat and mouse. You come up with the short steps like the Lionel Messi, and then you see which way he's leaning, and then you push it the other way. And that is more clay,
Yeah.
right? Because you're not premeditated. So I believe that it could be part ego with the big blast that is a souvenir for someone. But the I think it's also mentally something happened and you weren't able to control your nerves, and so you tried to kick through your nerves, and that's what could happen.
Do you think you let yourself off the hook a little bit by doing that? Because afterwards, you're able to kind of look back and be like, well, I went for it as much as I could and I missed. Do you feel like by doing that, you're able to almost let yourself off the hook too much?
Yeah, I mean, if that's happening, I think that's a really dangerous mindset for an athlete because it's almost justifying the miss,
Yeah.
and you want to put everything into the possible make. I think you have to hit your spot, and if the goalie makes a tremendous save and you didn't make a mistake, it's okay.
Yeah.
Then hats off to the goalie. But if you don't put the ball on the net, that it will not go in.
Yeah.
So that's that's a
I think
tough.
that's the same relationship in pickleball, right? If you're hitting balls into the net, you're not even giving yourself a chance at the point, right?
Yeah, the 5100 rule. Yeah.
Exactly. If it's getting over the net, you have 100% chance of still winning the point, right? Regardless of if it's high and the guy's smashing it down on you, you still have a chance to get the ball back the next time around. In the net, you're screwed.
Absolutely.
Point is over.
Yeah.
Something that I wanted to kind of close on here, and I just want to emphasize, and then I'll let you go, is that I think the story that you told today is super important. And I think the emphasis of it that I like to emphasize and you like to emphasize and everything that we do is the purpose built behind it, right? So because of the purpose that you have in a coach and what you do, you were able to leave a massive impact on an individual, right? And I want to relate this also to anybody that has watched the Netflix documentary as well with Noah Lyles. Is his bigger purpose that he's very vocal about is he wants to grow track and field as a sport to be put on the map like other sports. So his thing is saying, like, he knows what these athletes endure. He knows the training that they go through. He knows the dedication that they have. And he really feels like they're not getting the eyeballs. The sport is not getting the eyeballs that it deserves. So he's operating from a higher purpose. And so that's what drives him to have a lot of faith. That's what drives him to get out of bed when he doesn't want to get out of bed, right? And same thing in Angelo's situation, the impact that was incredibly left to give that belief and really instill that belief in someone else and give them the taxes to do so was driven by the purpose that he has within his teaching every single day, right? Knowing that he wants to leave an impact on other people and give them the skills to be the best version of themselves, right? So I want to personally thank you for that, Angelo, because you have also done that for me on a high level. And we do that every single day. And I cannot be more grateful for it. And I'm excited. You just told me a story that happened of 11 years ago. I'm excited to see in 10 years from now where we are as well, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully we continue to document it like this on the way. I think that we really have to, because I think that it just gives tremendous value. So thank you, Ange, for today. I'll let you go.
That's great.